So I would not be available to be a developing coach, I think that, but you're going to be watching everybody that's out there, because that's what I do. I go to events and watch, including on the West Coast. I'm going next week. I'm going to the next 3 weeks. I'm twice out in California watching one event called 3 Day Ranch, and then going to Galway also. So you see the scope of the people that are out there. And I think most of you know me out there. I'm not sitting in a warm-up ring. I'm usually out in the middle of the cross-country course watching the day, because that's, I think, how you assess people of it going, and then with the people that you're working with or the people that are interested in, you come back and give them hints of where to go. So you want to see it. You want to see them compete at all levels, because I really am a believer that the mistakes or the technical problems or some technical things that you'll do at the advanced level, you'll do it on your training course too. And so if you're working through something from a technical thing, you really want to see it at all levels. I think there was a question on the phone.
Yeah, David, it's Marsha. I have a question for you. May I go ahead?
Sure.
Given the scope of our country and the process of trying to key in on the developing riders over, the next length of your contract, how you propose to not only be, the senior coach, but what kind of a network would you put in place to really be able to hone in on the developing riders, spotting talent, and then indeed bringing it along? What kind of an infrastructure would you hire behind you to help that?
Everybody get that? Everybody heard? For me, it's the question mainly is about the developing rider process, and I think the talent spotting thing that we have right now is very good. I'm not really quite sure if it has to be a committee. I think it could be a direct line straight into. Just pick up the phone. One of you guys has got a kid or a younger rider that you're really excited about that you saw in Utah, call up the phone, and I will go see them outright. You go see them in competition, you go see them in some type of situation, and you will go see this person. So I think that direct line of anybody that's around the country that thinks that they have a good kid, that's number one. But the other thing that I would want to do, because I think that the voice, I'm very kind of pretty strong about that the voice needs to say the same, and the conversation needs to say the same all the way across from top to bottom, is that we right now, over the years, I've been arguing for, in some ways, putting forward developmental processes from the beginning and trying to put trips together, and always got cut out of the budget, and have gone to the USET to try to get dedicated funds, which is now starting. I think some dedicated funds that are actually going to come into the young riders, that are made for young riders, so that they can't get cut out of some senior budget. But I feel like it's important to do both. And what my suggestion and what I would like to do, if we talk to the high performance committee and the selectors, is right now we treat the developing riders exactly the same as we treat our senior riders. So they get 2 or 3 days, they get a clinic. And I really would like to take the developing riders and separate them out and actually do a longer type of session with them that is much more education based instead of being competition based. And that would be in the off times of the year. That would be in July and November. And on the East Coast, and in the East Coast and in the West Coast, to be able to go and spend an extended period of time, a 7-day, 8-day, maybe even a 9-day session with the developing riders, and truly go through all aspects of what it takes to be a top rider. What it takes about program, what it takes about veterinarians, I talk about blacksmiths, we talk about the techniques of riding, stable management, and really go into that section and make it much more of an educational based sessions, and then pick the top 2 or 3 out of that, and they can start to slide into the senior training sessions, of which not all of the people that would be selected at the developing rider would automatically have that ability. You would take those top ones that you really think are special. So I believe, and I also believe that it has to be multi-year things. So somebody that you're not flipping in and out of developing riders, work with them 1 year, then you don't see them, and then they come back. You got to come back and stay with these people for a while so they can truly get into the system, that they are not just about getting ready for that spring. Because the developing riders, 99.5% of them, you're actually not going to see win truly international competitions or be team levels for 8 to 10 years from then. And so getting into a system and getting into a thing where they can start to create their own programs and be educated that way, I think is really important. So I believe that in the end, The developing riders needs to be more of a sessions that are education-based, and the senior riders, it's more the training sessions that we would envision would be much more the assessment and a little bit more competition-based, as they are similar now, but it would be much more assessment. I think I'd spend a lot of time, I envision spending a lot of time on the road outside of training sessions, actually coming to see people's programs, to find out, to listen to lessons with who you're working with, and have that conversation, so you can meet your dressage person, meet your show jumping person, and have that conversation. So for me, this is outright a 365-day, well, 4, I like Christmas, 364-day a year. I mean, yeah, 364 days a year. Absolutely, it's totally. Well, that's just how I do things. I mean, I have a hard time not doing things full on. So. You want me to repeat that whole thing?
No, just the last little bit.
Okay. I was mumbling. Okay, why don't we take somebody in here first, and then we'll come back to you, Marcia.
Sure.
No, I think it's just a time commitment. I mean, the question is about, Allison was asking about the developing riders, but also about the coming in to assess their own program. And I think it's just a time commitment of spending time on the road, especially very, very importantly within the first 18 months, about actually coming, the training sessions where we bring people together and share things, but also coming to try to see your own programs. I mean, if the training sessions are in Aiken, I can see, and there's a consensus there, and there are people that are working there with some people, I have no problem about watching some lessons instead of doing the assessment. I know I don't know how to fix you guys on the phone here. I got it about 2 inches from my face. So. Absolutely. Yeah. The question was, is that do I envision actually seeing people work on other horses? And I absolutely would see that, because, and again, if you're talking about from a technical point of view or from a theory point of view, it actually doesn't make a level of different horses. So if you're working on from a technical or theoretical point of view, you're talking about assessment of programs and manage or helping to guide and work together about guiding a horse's career, and it's much more about the single horse. Any other questions? Marcia, did you have a question again?
David?
Sure.
Yeah. David, as you probably are aware of, we have had some significant leaks in our program at crucial times, i.e. revolving around a couple of days before leg. And I want to know specifically, or I'd like to be informed about if you have given some thought to the good and also the difficult side of technology, and how you would handle your team members and the confidentiality of information that should be released to the public in a way other than on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. But how specifically are you going to deal with your team and that very crucial thing of confidentiality and team spirit about confidentiality of what's going on in the inner circle of our system at a crucial time?
Everybody hear that? Yeah. I think there's 2 levels to that conversation. One about the confidentiality, and I think it's really important that in selection procedures and some levels of technical committee decisions, where you're talking about people and you're talking about horses, and you possibly could be talking about. Can you guys hear me? Is this any better? Oh, you got speakerphone on this, Jim? Hold on for a second. Is there speakerphone on? Okay, you guys still there? Okay, we got a different phone, we're trying a different phone. So we talked about the confidentiality part. I think it's very, very important at committee levels, especially in selection, veterinary matters, and technical sides, where you're talking about people, you're talking about horses, where actually part of that conversation could have a negative effect on somebody's career or a horse's career. That has to be confidential outright, period. In any selection procedure, it has to be confidential. Or else you're not going to get the ability for somebody to really open, I'm talking about a committee member, to be able to open up and talk about whatever they feel of that horse or that rider. So there has to be a confidential side. I'm a believer actually in the team processes when we're in team camp. The biggest thing is actually getting information out to the group in itself and creating an environment. I'm a great believer that success breeds success. And when you create an environment of trust and you create an environment of belief, a lot of that confidentiality is not so important. And I'll give you an example. A long time ago, and then I've always been this way in my coaching career, been this way in my riding career. We were down in Sydney and my horse got hurt. And this was custom made, got hurt right before in Sydney, and we found out as we flew down there. And the first thing I did was brought all the riders together and told them straight out what happened. That we don't know if it's going to work, we don't know if he's going to come back, we don't know if it's going to be like that, but you brought all of the riders, all of the grooms, all of the people that were in the staff situation, and you told them outright, and you were open about it. And in that way, people are not making up stories, they're not making up, things don't get out that where things explode, because it's not true. Everybody has to have that same story, and then it creates that, I believe, that kind of family situation where the family knows. And the family then takes the responsibility because you're supporting each other. And this is something that I've talked about with the Canadians, is that you are going to be unsuccessful if you are going to do this on your own. If in a team situation, you are only as good as the people around you. And they have to support you, they have to trust you, they have to trust you ethically, they have to trust you morally, they have to trust you competitively. And when you create that environment outright, then I believe that some of the stuff, even with modern day technology, with on the phones, and it happens in a heartbeat, that trust within each other and that support with each other is paramount, I believe, to having a successful team. I'm a believer that when you walk onto an Olympic Games or a World Championships, you spend your first afternoon there watching everybody hack around, you can call the first three teams right there. You haven't seen them do anything. And 90% of the time, you can call who the first three teams are going to be, because there's a, aura. That's a weird word, but there's a feeling to them, right? There's a feeling of unity. There's a feeling of group. There's a feeling of togetherness, and you can call it right off the bat. So I hope that answers your question.
We are at the halfway point, David, for you, and approximately 30 minutes remain.
Okay. There's going to be a whole nother 30 minutes of questions. Any questions from the phone? Might not take 30 minutes. Hold on.
If by chance it happens, somebody steps in and makes a mistake and leaks confidential information, how do you handle that with that person?
I believe it has to be handled internally, unless if there's a cross of the line of code of conduct that ends up coming out to, where there's a true feeling of whether it's a code of conduct violation for the USEF. But more that we can handle it internally, the best. The first thing I believe is to get people to trust the system, so that negativity of trying to put information out there that is going to be detrimental to somebody else doesn't happen.
I have sort of the opposite side of the question, not the confidentiality side, but the transparency side. How are you going to fix